top 5 reasons why you should invent a time machine and go back in time to visit Venice from 600 CE to 1650 CE. Just a bit of a disclaimer before I get started. Any Italian name that I pronounce is probably going to be butchered, but I'm going to try my best to make it as accurate as possible. Some basic facts before we start. Roman Catholicism was the main religion practiced in Venice at this time, and Italian and the Venetian dialect was the main language that they spoke. Coming in with number 5, we got painting. In the 16th century, Venetian painting was developed through influences from the Paladin school and Antonella de Messina, who introduced the oil painting technique from the Van Eyck brothers. It is signified by a warm color scale and picturesque use of color. Also, canvases originated in Venice during the early Renaissance. Coming number 4, we got Byzantine trade. Byzantine exports such as luxury silk, other cloths, spices, and precious metals going through Venice, and from Venice, salt and wood, along with enslaved people. I do not condone slavery, that is very bad. But anyway, were shipped toward Byzantium and the Muslim Levant. Coming in at number 3, we got the Aldine Press. This is one of Italy's earliest printing presses, made by Aldus Manutius in 1494. It issued the first printed work of Aristotle and printed the Hypernorotamachia Polyphili, which was considered the most beautiful book of the Renaissance. It developed Venice as an important typographic center. Printing presses such as this also established modern punctuation, page format, and an italic type. There were 417 printers by 1500. Venice was also an early center for printing music. Coming in at number 2, we got the Carnival of Venice. It's an annual festival held in Venice, and it ends on Shrove Tuesday, which is the day before Ash Wednesday for those of you who don't know. Famous for elaborate masks. There were a bunch of different kinds of masks: the Bauta, Colombina, Medico della Peste, Moretta, also known as Servetta Muta, and Volto, to name a few. After a military victory in 1162, the people were so hyped that they gathered in San Marco Square and started dancing, promoting license and pleasure, and serving as a symbol to protect Venetians from present and future anguish. Coming in with number 1, the best reason why you should go back in time and visit Venice is the salt trade. Venetian merchants bought salt from Egypt, Algeria, the Crimean Peninsula, Sardinia, Ibiza, Crete, and Cyprus. The establishment of these trade routes also allowed Venetian merchants to pick up other valuable cargoes, such as Indian spices, from these ports to trade. Then they sold salt and other goods in the Po Valley, Pizzasina, Parma, and Reggio, among others, in exchange for salami, prosciutto, cheese, and soft wheat, among other goods. The salt office collected 165,000 ducats, net of costs in 1464, or around 15% of the entire income of the Venetian state. Some honorable mentions that didn't make it on the list, but definitely deserve to be mentioned, are the Festa del Redentor, which takes place on the 3rd Sunday of July and started as a feast to give thanks for the end of the plague of 1576. Last but certainly not least, we got glass. Venice is known for its unique glasswork, known as Venetian glass, which is world-renowned for being colorful, elaborate, and skillfully made. That's all the time we have today, guys. See you next time for another epic top 5 video.
Ma'am, for $1, will you answer a question about post-classical Venice?
Sure.
What were women's main jobs during the post-classical era?
I don't know, probably seamstresses or something like that.
No, it's motherhood.
Oh, no.
You don't get $1.
Alright.
Sir, for $1, the plague cost Venice to lose what percent of its population during the post-classical era?
17.
Let's begin drawing the line art. Today we're drawing the Ca d'Oro, a palace in Venice. You'll notice that I've sketched out the building, since it's always good to go into a drawing with a plan. To make the drawing process simpler, let's split the building into segments. I made the top 2 floors 4 rows long on lined paper, and the bottom floor 7 rows long. Using lined paper helps maintain consistent proportions. The windows have pointed arches that were characteristic of the Gothic style, though rounder arches were popularized during the Renaissance. Between the windows, I'm also drawing the traceries. Instead of merely holding stained glass, Venetian traceries contributed to the support of the whole building, making them unique. As we move on to the bottom floor, we can see that the columns supporting the building on the bottom floor also have the pointed arches indicative of the Gothic style. You'll notice that the bottom floor is more sparse than the rest of the building, a common occurrence that's due to constant flood risk. However, despite this, Venetians had little security troubles, since the shallow lagoon it was built on caused boats unfamiliar with the channels to run aground. The shallowness of the lagoon was due to the Lido, a slender bank of land about 8 miles long, which formed a natural barrier between Venice and the open sea. Despite being centered on the Rialto, the highest area in the lagoon, the soft alluvial mud that the city was built on required architects to be conscientious of their building's weight. Many buildings, like the one we're drawing right now, had less weight-bearing walls, which made the building lighter. This also added lightness and grace indicative of Islamic architectural influence. And as I'm finishing up the drawing, you can see me adding textures using markings like squiggles, and also adding details like the bricks to parts of the building. And I eventually finish up the drawing by adding water to the foot of the building. And that's a wrap! Now you know how to draw Venetian architecture.
Ma'am, for $1, how much population growth did Venice see by the 1570s? A, 1,000 to 6,000, B, 100,000 to 170,000, or C, 160,000 to 190,000?
C?
No, it's B.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Sir, for $5, what religious figure was used to show the importance of feminine behavior in post-classical Venice? It was a religious figure.
It was a religious figure.
I'll tell you, the figure was a girl.
That's great. I don't know anything about religion.
Yes.
I don't know what my options are.
It was the Virgin Mary. Apparently, people are stupid.
History and government along with all the notable leaders. Venice was created after the fall of the Roman Emperor. In 568, the Lombards drove the Italians onto a lagoon which became part of the exarchate of Venice. When the city of Azor fell to the Lombards in 641, Venice gained political authority. The Lombards harassed Italy, and under the old Byzantine system, the region was ruled by a tribune and it suffered from weak leadership. So the patriarch Grado elected Paolo Lucio and Infesto in the first ode to Venice. No real proof of his existence though, was he even real? From 726 to 737, Orso Pardo was the first real Venetian node since he was actually elected. He was against the iconoclast policies of the Byzantine Emperor and was later murdered by rebels during a civil conflict. In the 8th century, the Byzantines were losing their power in northern Italy, and it started when Venice was captured by the Lombards. The Byzantines lost control of northern Italy, but in the centuries that followed, Venice developed its military and navy, and the city grew extremely wealthy. Boats of trade between original and Van. The Crusades were the most important military campaign of the Middle Ages, and the Venetians were extremely involved in them. In the First Crusade, the Venetians aided the capture of the coastal cities of Syria by contributing to 100 ships. In 1100, Miah, Jerusalem attempted to capture the city of Sidon, but stopped by the naval fleet led by the Doge della Fofolero. So the Venetians were rewarded by the Crusaders for their support. And in 1123, the pact of money was signed between the Republic of Venice and the Kingdom of Jerusalem, which granted the Venetians autonomy in this Crusader state. During the Fourth Crusade, he doge was Enrico Ronaldo. The most famous doge in Venice's history is doge. Ronaldo negotiated treaties with various foreign powers. He reorganized the Republic's currency, published Venice's first collection of civil statutes, and revised the penal code. He also swore to ducal promise, an oath that laid out the duties and rights of the doge and limited the power of the Venetian doges. During the Fourth Crusade, Crusaders needed Venetian transport, but did not have the funds, so Ronaldo agreed. But in return wanted the city of Zara, which was under the protection of a Christian ruler. The Crusaders agreed and Zara was captured, followed by the sack of Constantinople in 1204. After the capture of the Byzantine capital, Ronaldo took the title Lord of the Fourth, part and a half of the whole Emperor of Romania, and was nearly 100 years old during this campaign. The doges who succeeded, Ronaldo continued to expand the power of the Republic like Doge Michel Stendhal. The Ottoman-Venetian Wars began from 1499 to 1503 to 1570-1573. The Ottomans were defeated by the Holy League at the Battle of Lepanto. Sebastian Obedia, the Doge at the time, was the commander of Venetian forces. The battle for control over the eastern Mediterranean between the Venetians and Ottomans continued after the Battle of Lepanto. And into the next centuries, the conflict took its toll on the Venetians. By 1710, the Republic lost its major possessions on the Greek peninsula. And in 1797, the Republic of Venice, cause of Napoleon Bonaparte.
Ma'am, for $1, whose individual needs were more important in post-classical Venice, men's or women's?
Men's.
Yay!
You get
For $1, what culture most influenced post-classical Venice?
France.
No.
What's the answer?
The answer is Islamic culture.
The following is based loosely on 2 merchant manuals found in Venice. They were written by an unknown foreign merchant. Upon my arrival, the beauty of Venice struck me as a shimmering diamond, glistening under the sun and constantly reflecting the light of her surrounding waters. I am but a humble merchant, yet upon stepping foot in Venice, my spices have sold for soaring prices. In the ever-so-crowded marketplace, the city teems with life. It seems as if all of Earth's creations are brought here to be traded, sold, and enjoyed. It is here where I learn of the wise European men and their incessant philosophical quarrels. The people tell wild stories and poems of roaring dragons, giants, fierce battles, and knights taking on wild quests. I find these texts quite intriguing indeed. I am captivated by the beautiful canals, spotted with glimmering fish and civilians rowing peacefully on boats. I spend my nights at an inn, facing the beautiful edifices. Indeed, the city of Venice is a wonder. Hi, I'm Merchant Mo, and today I'm in Venice, which is the most popular city right now in 1412. So today we're going to be talking about how this city might actually be the best move for you. We already know that Venice is a major hypercenter for trade, but why exactly is it so appealing for us as merchants? Obviously, Venice has the perfect location for maritime trade. It's built on a lagoon in the Adriatic Sea, which also means that it's connected to tons of trade routes. For example, Venice has access to the Silk Road. So if you're looking for a merchant partnership with someone from Baghdad or China, you can just get some products from them and resell them here in Venice. And if you're asking yourself, well, what about the Indian Ocean trade routes? Venice has access to them too, so you can definitely get your hands on some quality spices or some textiles. Just be aware that if you do choose to trade here, you definitely need a way to access the Mediterranean Sea. Now, how are you actually going to profit off of this? Well, since this is a port city connecting Afro-Eurasia and Western Europe, you're going to be relying primarily on European demand, and right now it's really high. So how does Venice's city structure end up supporting so much trade? Well, the canals I'm standing in here play a really large role in this. So these canals are exactly what's going to boost your profit. You definitely need a boat to move your commodities around and get to the marketplace as fast as possible. Overall, if you're a merchant in 1412, you should definitely consider traveling to Venice for trade.
Post-classical Venice